this is from KCM71. Trump's approach seems to tear it all down and tear it all down and rebuild it to the benefit that he sees as worthy. Is there an opening for the left to take advantage of the destruction of precedent in a system that seems untethered to actually back Trump's attempts at diplomacy and do so with the primary narrative of benefiting wage earners and the general population? Any suggested strategies? This is actually a related question from Bookwench. Do you consider the fact that Democratic Representative Ro Khanna has submitted legislation to codify Trump's drug pricing executive order to be an indication that Democrats are maybe moving away from their anti-Trump focus, or is this just an aberration? All right, let me answer that second question first. Bernie Sanders also said, yeah, Trump, your executive order to control drug prices, to give most favored nation status to the United States, to prevent Americans from paying more for drugs that are available for cheaper in other countries. You know, this has been something Bernie Sanders has been talking about for a long time, that Democrats and liberals have been talking about forever, and yet never really did anything about it. And then Trump comes and signs this executive order, which no Democrat would be able to publicly oppose. They may oppose it because they're funded by health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, and they may actually really be against it and work to subvert it in the bowels of the House and with lobbyists, but they're never going to come out and publicly oppose it. And I think a lot of Democrats do support it, and their argument has been, if you do it by executive order, you know what's going to happen. You did it in the first term. Big Pharma is going to sue in court. They're going to say your executive order doesn't have a basis in law. You don't have the right to do this without Congress. Courts are going to rule that you need Congress to do it, and therefore it's just going to be a symbolic gesture that changes nothing. And so the Democrats are saying, look, if you really believe in this, let us in Congress work together in a bipartisan way to enact legislation that embodies the key tenets of your executive order into law so that they're no longer vulnerable to legal challenge by Big Pharma. Now, I haven't seen much receptiveness to that from Trump, and I think part of it is that the White House is interested in constantly creating the perception that the president can do whatever he wants and doesn't need Congress for it. I think I mentioned this on a show the other night, that the Bush-Cheney administration position was, we can invade Iraq, we can attack Iraq, start a new war with Iraq, we don't need Congress to do it. And so Congress was left begging, please let us vote on this. And they were trying to say, we'll vote for it, but it'll be a much stronger policy if we support it. And then Bush-Cheney basically said, all right, if you want to vote on it, vote on it. We don't really care, we're going to do it anyway, but you can vote on it. And it passed. And so executive branches, especially ones that believe in a very robust model of Article 2, often want to establish the fact that they can do whatever they want without Congress. But in this case, if Trump really means it, if Trump is really trying to do this, you would think he would let Democrats do it. And I don't think it indicates some broader willingness on the part of Democrats to work with Trump or to renounce this reflexive opposition to whatever Trump wants. I just think that this issue, lowering prescription drug costs, has been so central to what Democrats have claimed they believe in for decades. There's just no way on this one issue they can oppose Trump. As far as the broader question is concerned, one of the things that I have seen is that the reason Democrats have so many positions that they now hold, even though they were anathema to liberal politics for decades, is simply because Trump took the opposite position. So when Trump started critiquing and railing against the corruption and malice of the deep state and their nefarious interference and influence in our domestic politics of the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, long-term left-wing views going back to the Cold War, kind of fundamental to the left-wing views to be very skeptical of and hostile toward these three-letter agencies that can comprise the deep state. But soon as Trump started opposing those agencies, Democrats united to support them. And now you barely ever hear Democrats criticizing these agencies. If a Republican criticizes these agencies, Democrats will say, how dare you? These are patriotic men and women working to keep our country safe. Remember the CIA and the FBI, which have long been bugaboos of civil libertarians on the left for most of the 20th century, and for good reason. And even when it comes to things like this Middle East trip to to the Persian Gulf and improving relations with the Emiratis and the Saudis and the Qataris, Hakeem Jeffrey stood up and basically condemned Trump for meeting with Qatar in Qatar and said Qatar is the country that funds our enemies like Iran and Hamas, like reading from the AIPAC script. Like, who wouldn't want our country to have better diplomatic relations with countries with a lot of money and a lot of influence in their region? But it's because Trump does it that Democrats then immediately oppose it, like reflexively oppose it. Same thing with tariffs. The Democrats, or at least the left, have long hated free trade, these free trade agreements, globalist institutions. The left famously protested against the World Trade Organization in 1999 in Seattle, and from there, that became a foundational view of left liberal politics. The free trade is what has deindustrialized the working class and our cities. And then Trump comes out and says, yeah, I agree, free trade has been terrible for the United States. We need to get jobs back to the United States by using tariffs, which have long been a very popular policy among unions and the left. And then suddenly Trump announces it, and they're like, he's crashing our stock market. As though now the most important thing for Democrats is to keep Wall Street happy. And this is you've seen this in so many instances, this radical reversal of Democratic Party values and policies and positions. Primarily for no reason other than the fact that once Trump takes a position, they automatically take the opposite. And, I guess if you're feeding for so long on a closed discourse, a narrative that tells you that Trump is a fascist, Trump is Hitler, Trump is ending our democracy, Trump is a Putin asset, a Kremlin agent. I guess if you really believe those things, it kind of makes sense. Like, we're not going to really want to work with you, given that you're Hitler. Like, sometimes Hitler might have a good idea, but I'm still not going to work with Hitler. But there are so many opportunities for Democrats to work with that wing of the Republican Party that Trump represents in order to accomplish things they claim to want to accomplish. But the reality is the vast majority of the Democratic Party does not see opportunity and potential alliances with the Trump, MAGA, nationalistic, non-interventionist wing. They have much more in common with the Republican establishment. They're way more comfortable working with Mitch McConnell or like Paul Ryan or Tom Tillis or John Thune. They see much more in common with those people than they see with the Republican Party. It's the reason why Trump nominated some people who were against wars, who were very vocal supporters of Lena Khan and the anti-monopolist, anti-trade agenda that Democrats claim to believe in. People like Matt Gaetz, who really was opposed to so many wars, who had so many views that Democrats could have shared. Tulsi Gabbard, who was in the Congress for 8 years as a Democrat. And it's notable that RFK Jr., also a lifelong Democrat, those are the people the Democrats tried to stop. But the Republican establishment appointees, like Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio, John Ratcliffe at CIA, they breezed through the Congress. In fact, Rubio got approved unanimously in the Senate because the Democrats feel much greater comfort with and alignment with the Republican establishment wing rather than the populist wing of the Republican Party. And I think that's all part of the reason why the character of Democrats has become so hated, because they're basically just this amorphous, belief-free, status quo perpetuating wing of the establishment, and there's basically no way to make yourself more unpopular more quickly than to be that, and Democrats just can't find a way. They're trying to change rhetorically, they're trying to get personality implants, but the foundational identity of the Democratic Party continues to be defined by their affinity for the establishment and reflexive opposition to whatever Trump does, even when he's doing good things and popular things, that I think the Democrats are going to be stuck for a very long time, even if Trump ends up leaving office as an unpopular president. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.